Hey everyone, this is Evgeny and we're back in our series about LangGraph, LangChain 1.0. So today we continue our topic about middlewares and we're going to check something new, the thing which allows you to limit the number of calls or loops your model can perform to fulfill your request or your agent. Anyway, join me and let's take a look at that together. Before we dive into the details, you have to check what are angry cats, because those the one who are supervising this video. So you have to check the link, the merge is there. Alright, today we are talking about Model Call Limit Middleware. This is a new type of middleware that can help you when you want to limit the number of loops your agent goes through performing user request. Anyway, you won't need this. Just imagine a situation when your agent is really complex or a complicated one and your user sends the complicated request as well, which forces the agent to loop over and over again. And if you think about that, for example, you have paid model where every request costs some money, then you are kind of trouble as a developer of this agent, because while your agent works, you are consuming API calls, you're paying for it, but you're kind of asking user to pay for a single call. So you want to limit this somehow. And maybe a good example of that, if you want to see some real stuff, like just imagine we're in here in Windsurf and I'm defining here a new request. Well, it's a bit tricky. You need to force the agent to loop over and over again. And so it's not normally what's happening, but still it's a complex work. And here I'm asking the agent to go through 1 to 10,000 and do some internet research on every single number and then collect it. And it's pretty lengthy task, right? If you think about that, it could be like days of the work, and you don't want to charge your user a single point. For example, like here in Windsurf, you spend a point or two for a request, so you don't want your users to pay so less for you to work in for weeks, and you have to stop somewhere. So this is the idea, and here's my request. I'm going to go through it, just sequential numbers from 1 to 10,000, and then ask agent to do the internet research for the number, if it's significant value, if it has some meaning in humankind history, nature, traditions or something, and then provide a response back like a report. And it's clear, right? It's a lot of information should be processed here, and the agent will be dying doing this. So it should stop somewhere just to allow me to think about if I really need it. Anyway, let's give it a try so you understand better what I mean. I'm just running this request and we wait until it's finishing. Alright, and so here we are, look at that. Only some numbers like from or till 74 were processed here, so it's far away from finishing the work, but it takes a lot of time already. And since it's an agent, it goes looping all the time through model and tooling and back to the model. And practically as a developer of such an agent, you have to have some limitations for it. So you need to stop it, and this is what happened here. Like, see, the model stopped here and then it asked, would I continue or not? And if I continue, this would be considered as another request from me and it will be charged differently. So it's kind of, I'm sharing the responsibility of this agent working for days, right? So this is the idea, and this is the use case, kind of maybe not so stupid, like you're going from 1 to 10K and trying to do something, but really if you try to perform a really huge task, it will face the limits anyway. Like, it happens pretty often. And today we are talking about the middleware that allows us to kind of simulate this behavior. So now you see the problem, and I will show you how the solution for this problem looks like. So what do we have here? Let me first import some basic stuff. Then I'm going to use the same MCP service we used previously. So this is about documentation from LangChain. And again, here I'm defining some basic stuff like the system prompt. I'm loading the MCP server, MCP client. I'm creating the model itself, right? Then I'm defining the basic model, the basic agent. And this one uses the model. It uses the LangChain doc MCP server tools, system prompt, and I have a memory saver. And this is our classical thing. So the problem here, if the request is pretty big enough, like it's heavy to perform, what will happen? The model will go to tool call, go back to model, and this cycle will be working for quite a long time, like for infinite time. It might be like the worst case scenario, right? And we want to stop it at some point and say, okay, that's enough. You need to, like here with the continue, you need to do something. So that's the idea. And let's first, this is the baseline agent, so it doesn't have any restrictions, just works the way until everything is finished, like the classical example. And we do have a research task. So basically, it's not so important what should be performed here, but just for demonstration purposes, what we are doing, we are trying to do the research and the documentation on MCP server and fetch all the information about middlewares and prepare for us a report or something. So it's definitely a number of steps needed here. So we have our baseline agent, we invoking it, and we providing this research task to it. And then let's wait until it's finished, and then we'll take a look at the details of this execution. All right, we are there, and from programmatic point of view, it was already quite a heavy research, like it was 12 messages performed. It was heavy with network calling to MCP server to process the information, making another calls. And if we check the output, so here we have the human message, the AI message. So it was a plan, then a tool call with a lot of information back. Let me just scroll quickly through it. And another AI message, and the second step was done, and then another search tool, MCP tool call, right? And it's repeating several times in the loop until the last message was that kind of, okay, all the information is collected here. Whew, it's really long. But you got the idea, right? It's more or less the same situation as I showed you here on the right-hand side, right? We have 12 messages, we have multiple MCP server tool calls. And maybe this is not the way you want your agent to work. Like, for example, it's a really huge work. You need to stop it somewhere. And as I mentioned, we do have a middleware for that already in LangChain 1.0. It's called Model Call Limit Middleware. And the way we do it is very simple, right? We have this middleware parameter, and there we are defining middlewares in an array on a list. And we have our middleware for Model Call Limit Middleware, where we can define some parameters. So for example, you can define how many loops is allowed to be like, or how many model responses are allowed to be here. And then you may define a exit behavior, like the possibilities here are that you can end it gracefully, like, okay, everything is fine, we finish the job, or you can raise an exception. Like for example, here for windsurf, they decided that it's exit behavior is end, right? It's not accepting anything, it's not showing any errors. It's kind of, yeah, work is just slow. I'm stopping here to think, to let you think if you want to continue or not. So it's kind of good finishing, right? And here the same, we have it here. It's to end, right? And if I build it, the agent, look at that. We do have this middleware. It's kind of in two parts already. We have the before model and after model. So these two things were added because of the middleware. And then what's happening under the hood when you're looping between model and tools, you have 2 points of validating your results, and at some point this model call limit middleware can decide, okay, it's enough. Like, we are working hard enough, but that's really enough. We need to stop here. Okay? So basically, it's a very simple trick. You see, just a single middleware. You don't have to implement anything. You don't have to put something extra on top. Just single middleware. You have a number of limits to 3, for example, like 3 loops I'm allowing to do, and exit behavior. Now let's define and the same message and run it and see how it differs from the previous, like plain, straightforward baseline agent. And we are there. This time we have 8 messages. Well, it's kind of, for one side, it's better, right? It's not, how many was there? I think it was 12 or something, but it's still not 3, right? You may ask this question, like, why this happened? We have 3 here, why we still have 8 messages? Well, there is only one way you can answer this question. You need to check the output and what's really happened there. And what do we have? We have a human message. We have the AI message, then tool message. So again, the kind of the same research started, and an AI message again, and tool message, and what's there? And an AI message again, and again tool message. Look at that. It's exactly the same as previously, right? But finally, we do have the last AI message saying that, okay, model call limit exceeded. and the run limit 3 from 3. So why it's 3 from 3? Why we have at the same time we have these 8 messages in total? And this is the trick, right? Because this middleware, it limits the number of model calls, and model calls means these AI messages. So this is the model call. So this one was generated. Just let me scroll. Model call was generated from this one. So this guy generates AI messages, and these are limited to 3. So if now with this knowledge we can double check it. So what we have here, we have the 1, we skip in tool message, we have 2, skip in tool message again, and now we have 3. So this one was limited already, right? And 2 messages. So next time it tries to create another AI message, it was 3 already, and then it finishes saying, okay, your limit was exceeded. So this is the way how it works. Like basically you need to understand, if you set limit to 3, it doesn't mean that the whole conversation with 3 messages. It means only that the messages generated by model AI messages will be limited here. So we have 3, and this one is 4th, but just informing us that, okay, your limit is exceeded. So here we are, just basically you have some additional stuff here to check it in the Git repository. But basically I used a run limit for 3 messages, but at the same time you can even have a thread limit, meaning that, let me scroll up back to our agent. So here we have this checkpointer, and if I run this second, for example, request for the same checkpointer for the same thread, you can limit that as well. So it's not the single call can be limited, but like the whole conversation is where it can be limited. Maybe you have use cases for performing this stuff. Like if you know something like which use case you can see, it's really interesting idea, could be, just let me know in the comments. Well, that was it for the video. It was about middleware that allows you to limit the number of calls the agent can perform in the loop, the number of model calls. And well, hopefully you now have a better understanding why and when you need to use that middleware when you're constructing your graphs or agents. And it was me, Evgeny. Thanks a lot for sticking with me till the end. I really appreciate it. And I think we will see each other in the next video about middlewares, LangGraph, LangChain 1.0. So until then, take care. Thank you, and